these anchor points is exactly perpendicular to the line that I have over here. So now I could take this circle here itself. I'm just going to use my direct selection tool. I'm just going to grab it by this anchor point and snap it directly to this end of the path over here. All right, let me actually zoom in here and I can actually see that I can do that. Illustrator's cursor will turn white when I have both anchor points exactly aligned to each other. So now I have a beautiful, curve that's going to go straight from my line segment that I've drawn directly into the curve, and it'll be a perfect curve in this way. So now what I could do is I could get it so that I want the actual curve to look just the way that I'm looking for here. So let's actually drag this just a little bit more. I want some more kind of bend to it. Let's say something just like that. Beautiful. So because I have the line that I've created, I can do the following. I can also take my scissor tool, right? Just hit the C for the scissor tool or cut. I'm just going to click right there on that guide that I've drawn. So now I can go ahead and I could select these other parts of the path. I just click this and hit delete, and then let's go ahead and now delete this part as well. So now I have created a perfect point here, and I can just simply click and drag to marquee select these areas and press Command J to join them. And I have a beautiful smooth connection between those two lines that are right there. So that's this part of A over here. How am I going to join these two parts? Again, this is what I love about the Shape Builder tool. It works on so many different things. Just click and drag for these to select these two areas, Shift M, and then Option drag across the parts that I don't want. And it's automatically connected now, just like that as well. I can take these two pieces and connect those, Command J, beautiful. So now I'm coming over here to the bottom. I want to connect, let's say, this part here as well. So what I could do, there's several ways to do this. There's no one right way or anything else like that. What I could do is I could take, let's say, this line right here, click over here, hold down my shift key here, and then click again so I get another anchor point somewhere about over here. And then I'm going to come to over here, and because I have smart guides turned on again, my cursor is going to snap to that path. And let's say I want to come up just about over here, click and drag upwards. And again, the smart guides is going to force Illustrator to snap the control handle to the same 290-degree angle that I created of this line right here. And obviously when I drew my sketch, I wasn't getting a really nice smooth curve. Here inside of Illustrator, I can do much better. And that looks beautiful right there, perfect. So now what I could do is once again, select these paths that I have here. The Shape Builder tool only works on artwork that's selected. So now that I've selected these paths, even if I may touch the moon shape, because the moon shape is not selected, the Shape Builder tool ignores it. Shift M for the Shape Builder tool, Option drag over these parts that I don't need. And I can actually just go ahead now and click and drag with the Shift key across all these to combine them together. So now I have basically created the entire part of the A, just to drag it over here so you can see it, with perfect anchor points just the way that I want it. So now what I'm going to do is, again, remember I needed to have two halves to the A. I'm going to tap the O key on my keyboard. O is the reflect tool. And I could, let's say, zoom in a little bit closer here. The way the reflect tool works is that you click on one point where you want the reflection to occur. We refer to this as the origin point. I click here once, and then I move my cursor away from that, and I hold down the Shift key and I drag. And that allows me to create now a complete opposite on this side. I just realized I need to hold down the Option key when I do that, because that way I want to create a copy. So Shift, drag, and also hold down the Option key. You can see now that my cursor has like a little double arrow, a black and a white arrow. That means I'm creating a copy. And now I'll release the mouse. And now I have the pieces that I need. I'm simply going to go ahead now and leave them colored as they are, because I want to start working on the spaceship and the other parts of this as well. So now let's talk about the swoosh itself that's kind of coming from behind the planet and across over here as well. Let's see how we create that. Again, I'm going to go to my ellipse tool. I'm going to position this in the center over here. And I'm just going to draw an ellipse, because that, again, that's the perfect shape. I don't want to worry about questioning myself when I use the pen tool. Is my curve accurate? Is it smooth? Is it clean? The more that I can rely on Illustrator's perfection in this case, the better off I'm going to be. And all I have to do is make small modifications to it. So I'm going to start over here in the center, Option again to draw it from the center. I don't want to hold the Shift key down because I want this to be an oval. And I'm going to choose a shape about, let's say, just like this and just like that. That looks pretty good right there. And I'm going to tap the R key to rotate this. Now, by default, Illustrator sets the origin point of the rotation to the center, which is fine. I'm just going to go ahead now and click over here and drag down, because I want to rotate it to be on an angle about, let's say, something like this. That looks pretty good. And I'm just going to move it up a little bit. Now, I'm going on my sketch over here. It looks like that my sketch had a more of a tight type of curve in this case here. I'm going to kind of go with the one that I just did because I like it better. So let's actually hide the layers panel for now. I don't need that. So I want to have it though where it starts kind of thin, but then it gets thicker. So how would I do that? So the way that I do that is I'm going to take just my regular selection tool. I'm going to tap the R key to get the rotate tool again. And I'm going to click now on this anchor point right here And again, I have smart guides on, so as soon as I mouse over the anchor, it highlights and says, there's the anchor. If I click on this right now, I am setting the origin point, meaning I'm setting the rotation area to basically hinge on this one area. So now I can go ahead and I can hold down my Option key and drag upwards a little bit. And I create something like this, right? Let's go ahead and maybe create something a little bit thicker, maybe something like that. Now, what I can do also is I can create 3 of them. I'm actually going to create 3 of them. So I'm just going to Option drag up about halfway to about, let's say, here. That looks about pretty good. And release the mouse. And then I'm going to press Command D for do it again. That's just going to repeat the last transformation. So now you can see it kind of have a thick part here. It gets thin, and then it gets thick again as it kind of swoops up to this part of the A. So again, just like I was doing before, I was using the Shape Builder tool to break these apart into the pieces that I want to work with. So there are several things that I can do. I want this to kind of have more of a pointy part to this. So I'm going to take my pen tool here. I'm just going to draw a regular basic shape. I'm going to start here. I'm just going to draw a shape, let's say, to here, and then to here, something like that, because I just want to get some kind of a point. When you're using the Shape Builder tool, I just want to have some kind of path that will tell Illustrator where to sever or cut that path when I'm working with it. So that's one area that I'm going to work with over here. I also need to just completely remove the parts that are going to be on this entire aspect of it. So I'm just going to draw a line just right here. Actually, let me undo that. I need to Command click here to deselect, and then go ahead and draw a line right there. And I'm also going to have to cut it in another area because I want the line to kind of start behind here and then come around here in the front. So in order for me to do that, I'm just going to probably cut it here as well. So I'm just going to choose a line that's going to go from here. Let me Command click over here and create a line just like that. Beautiful. So now I have the parts that I need. All I have to do is select these lines, these cut lines that I've drawn. And then I'm going to select these 3 shapes over here. Again, nothing else is selected, so the Shape Builder tool won't touch those. Shift M to access my Shape Builder tool. Option drag across the areas that I don't need. And if you use the Shift key while you're option dragging, it'll create a marquee. So you can basically highlight an area in a rectangular fashion. I'll go ahead and I'll do that. Let's just option drag over these areas to get rid of the line. Let's go ahead and option drag over this and this, because I don't need that. And let's go ahead now and option drag over these 2. So it looks like I have the areas kind of split up the way that I want them to be. That looks pretty nice. I'm actually going to hold down and shift drag across these areas to combine them into one shape. And then I'm going to go ahead now and shift drag across these to combine this into one whole shape. So now I have basically 2 shapes. I have the part that goes behind, and then I have the part that's going to come across the front right here. I do want this to kind of have more of a natural kind of look to it. So here's where I might kind of mess around a little bit with the, how this actually looks, and I could do this in a variety of ways. I actually will sometimes just use the Smooth tool inside of Illustrator and repeatedly mouse over an area to kind of turn it from a straight line into a curve, and then give it some more of a natural kind of feel as I just drag over it until I get something that looks the way that I want to. If I need to, I could just go ahead now and just adjust this as well. In the version that I created, the final version, I just, experimented with a variety of different ways to do this. Let me go ahead now and kind of make this look. That's gnarly, that area. Let's go ahead and clean that up a little with the Smooth tool. The Smooth tool can be really useful as you're doing this. If you have a Wacom tablet, it's going to be a lot easier for you to manage this aspect of it right over here. This is looking more like a meteor kind of thing. Well, I'm going to go ahead and smooth that out a little bit later. But for now, that's kind of what I'm looking at. That's kind of coming out of the back over here. So now let's focus on the spaceship. And this is one of the things that you really have to understand, that one of the most powerful ways that you can create artwork inside of Illustrator is by working off of something else. I'm actually going to save this document here for a second and dump it on my desktop here. Let's call this one Apollo A, because this is the letter A that I'm working with. So I'm going to go ahead now and create another artboard in my file. Go to my artboards panel. Let's just create a new artboard here. Kind of move over here. Let me zoom out just a second. I'm going to draw a vertical line. Again, I'm holding the Shift key down right down the center here so it snaps in place perfect. I'm going to choose File, Place. I basically just went to Google Images and I went, searching for basically some way for me to reference or know what shape a spaceship is. In this case, Apollo 13. So I did what I always create what I call a research folder. I just go to Google Images and I pull a whole bunch of stuff in here so I can reference something and know what it really looks like in real life. So if I go to spacecraft here, I have something called module. And this is an illustration that was done. I'm just going to place it here on the artboard. And it's on a 45-degree angle. So I'm just going to take this right now and just double click on my rotate tool, rotate it 45 degrees. And click and drag so it snaps to the center right here where I drew the guide. because this is a symmetrical piece of artwork, or primarily symmetrical, we'll see there's certain parts that are not. All I really need to do is just draw half of the artwork. And then I'm just, the same way that I was working with the A before, I'm just focused on drawing half of my artwork, and then I'll go ahead and I'll flip it around and I'll have my entire shape. So in this case here, this piece of artwork right now is not on the sketch layer. So if I go over here to my layer panel, for example, you can see that my artwork right now is on this layer. I can click and drag on this guy and try to bring him down, but he won't because the sketch layer is locked right now. If I double click on the sketch layer and I turn off the template option, so now it's a regular layer, I can drop this image now down into the sketch layer and then double click on the sketch layer, turn it back to a template again. And now that artwork becomes locked and has now been dimmed back. Let's go back to my artwork layer and let's start drawing this. And again, in this case here, it's probably going to be easy for me just to use some very simple stuff with the pen tool. I'm going to take the pen tool here, start by clicking, hold down the shift key, click over there. I'm going to click and drag to get a little bit of a curve, just like that. Now the next segment here needs to be a straight line. So I'm just going to simply click on that anchor point, and that's going to collapse the handle here, create what we call a cusp, where basically the path that comes into the anchor point is curved, but the next path that comes out of it is going to be a straight line. I'm just going to click over here with the shift key again on an angle, come down here. Let's make a little teeny, if I zoom in here, you can see there's kind of a little bit of a detail here. So I'm just going to click with the shift key down, create that. Let's come down to, let's say, right about over here. Now you'll notice that one side of the LEM, or the lunar module here, is a little bit different. I'm going to press D, by the way, because I want a black line here, but I don't want the white fill. So again, the slash key is going to go ahead now and get rid of the white fill. I'm just going to go ahead now and just kind of wing it here. No one's going to know the detail about this piece of the machinery right here. So I'm actually going to add this part later. So I'm just going to simply click down here. And this is one of the most beautiful things about working with Illustrator and creating anything that's illustrative, in my opinion, is that you control what the look of this artwork is going to be. So I'm just going to come down here and create what I feel it should be. Add these little teeny details here. I'm not even going to bother making that a curve, just a straight line. I'm just going to go ahead now and kind of finish up that part that's right there. So this really overall is my shape. This is the shape that I am working with. So if I zoom out just a bit over here, I can select my regular selection tool, select that outline that I've just created, press the O key on my keyboard, option click on the anchor point, which is right here in the center, shift, option, and now I basically created the other side here. Select both of these shapes, hit Command J to join them together. And now I've created that shape. Now there are a few details here that I want to add. So here's one of them, for example. I want to create these windows. Here I'll use the pen tool, just click 3 times, create a basic window here. I want this window to be on this other side also. I could have, by the way, I should have done this all before I flipped it over. But I'll just go ahead now and hit the O key, click right over here, and then flip it. Let's actually select the entire shape. Hit O, set my origin point, option, shift. Bring that window over here. Let's focus on some windows on this part of the spaceship as well. I'm just going to use a regular rectangle tool here for a second. Click and drag. And then you could use the share tool. There's like all these different tools inside of Illustrator. It's actually right over here. And I can just click to set an origin point, and again, shift and drag to kind of bring it in just a little bit. Let's use my regular selection tool here. Select just this part. And bring it in so we can see a little bit of an angle, just like that. Again, O, set my origin point, do reflection. So now it's reflected on that side. Now these windows over here are going to be a little bit different. So I'm just going to take a regular rectangle tool, click and drag, make a rectangle, option drag to about over here. I don't want these to be too close to each other because this piece of artwork is actually going to be reduced to be very, very small. So I want to make sure that there's enough space in between all of my shapes. Otherwise you're going to close up and you won't see anything there as well. So let's go ahead and do something like this. So now I've created those basic windows. Let's zoom out just a little bit. And I want to add some other details, especially over here to the lunar module to make it more interesting. And I also have to add the legs here as well. So I'm just going to add some basic shapes over here. Again, I don't want to do anything too crazy here, so we don't worry too much about detail. I'm just going to go ahead and add some shapes like this. And then I'll go ahead now and I'll add a shape here. And if I want to now incorporate those into the overall shape, what do I use? Of course, my shape builder tool, shift drag across these 3 shapes, shift M, and then just drag across all those right there, and they all get combined into one shape. So now let's go ahead now and focus really just on the legs here. I'm not even going to bother adding these other details. Actually, you know what? To make it a little bit cooler, I'm just going to add this little dish over here. So let's go ahead now and do an ellipse tool. Option shift to get a nice little perfect circle. Let's take the pen tool here and let's actually draw a diagonal line like that. And then let's also go ahead and draw a straight line like that. That should be fine. And I could, again, just select all these shapes, Shift M for the shape builder tool. Just get rid of the parts that I don't want. I'm just option clicking on the areas that I don't want, and then we'll go ahead and remove those for me. Look at that. Lovely. So now I have this part here. Let's add the legs. Let's take my regular pen tool here. Click, click, click right here. Let's take this right here and let's click there. Let's do a little landing gear there. Take this straight across. Beautiful. I want actually this part here on the outside to be a little bit thicker, so let's change the stroke weight to like 2 point for that. That looks a little bit better. Now for the bottom here of the feet, I can use an ellipse tool to option drag just like that, let's say. And then just use my direct selection tool, select the top anchor point, delete, and then Command J to go ahead now and join it so I get that. I'm going to hit Shift X, because notice now right now that my fill is none and my stroke is black. X toggles the focus between the two. Shift X actually swaps the fill and stroke colors. So now I've created something like that. We can nudge this up just a drop to make it look like it's attached. And we actually need to do this for the other side as well. And I'm going to need one of these guys over here in the center, because I have my smart guides and my rule here down the middle. The guide, it snaps right to the center. Let's actually add a stroke right up here. And this stroke needs to be 2 points also. Shift X, because I want it to have a black stroke. Let's go ahead and select it.